national chairman of our great party, very distinguished, supportive National Executive Committee members of our great party, Uncle Totobi Kwachi, as supportive as he's always remained with their Church Street Group, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media, my own colleagues from Parliament, and other functionaries of the NDC in your very different capacities. The Dagombe say that when you see a pregnant goat in the market, it means there is a pregnant problem at home. It is not ordinary at 9 p.m. for you to be told and informed that His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, the leader and flag bearer of the NDC, and the next president of Ghana to be, will be addressing the press. As many of you are already aware, the Supreme Court of Ghana has given a ruling in the matter relative to Article 42. A ruling, you know, the Supreme Court, the apex court of our land, which is clothed with the power and mandate for adjudication and interpretation. It's only instructive, and that is why we are here. That the Supreme Court will give a ruling with blurred edges and with synthetical ambiguities. That the very Supreme Court, which has a primary responsibility and duty to throw light and to interpret to avoid absurdity, itself will give a ruling which consequence is absurdity. And therefore, the only person who can calm nerves and get Ghanaians committed to the pursuit of the entitled and guaranteed rights under Article 42 is no mean the person than John Dramani Mahama. I have the singular honor to hand over the mic to him to speak to the country on this matter. Mr. President, Excellency.
Thank you, my brothers and sisters. Good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, earlier today, the Supreme Court of the Republic of Ghana gave its ruling in a case brought by the National Democratic Congress against the Electoral Commission of Ghana over its decision to compile a new voters' register. Despite the well-reasoned reliefs we sought, the apex court of our land has given a leeway for the Electoral Commission to go ahead with the exclusion of the existing voter identification card from the list of identification requirements for the registration for the register. My brothers and sisters, we're deeply disappointed and we strongly disagree with the court over this outcome, which has confounded many legal experts and indeed has thrown the whole country into a state of confusion. Our legal team is examining this decision even as we await the full reasons for this judgment. It is also worrying that the court deferred the reasons for its decision to the 15th of July, a date by which time the EC would have been 2 weeks into the said registration exercise. My brothers and sisters, throughout its history, the NDC has stood strongly for an inclusive democracy. That is because our party is built on the principle that no one should be left out in the governance process of Ghana. This principle may be seen through the various of the Consultative Assembly, which prepared the 1992 Constitution, view of the Constitution in 2010, which stands out as the most comprehensive consultative program in our. This represents the handiwork of a desperate incumbent that, on account of its very poor performance in government, sees its very political survival only through the prism of manipulation of the electoral process to exclude a section of Ghanaians who they suspect may not renew their mandate at the polls. A caring, compassionate, and responsible government would not push us to the brink at a time of a major pandemic such as COVID-19 that is causing so much anguish amongst our citizens. It is deeply regrettable that the Electoral Commission, which should be independent, Africa, has today made itself a willing tool in the execution of this most diabolic agenda. The exclusion of the old voters' ID card, which has been used to conduct several elections under the current leadership of the Electoral Commission, and from which the current president derives his mandate, is aimed at deliberately disenfranchising Ghanaians who have falsely been branded foreigners without any basis. The party's time-honored belief and commitment to democracy as opposed to the MPP's exclusiveness. However, it was obvious from the outset of this struggle that inclusive democracy was not going to have a hearing, even against the resounding calls by the National House of Chiefs, religious leaders, civil society organizations, and various trade and professional groups. My brothers and sisters, the right to vote must, however, not be curtailed on account of this minor setback. We cannot throw our hands up in despair because the fight to insist on inclusion has been temporarily derailed by this ruling of the Supreme Court. We can still make our voices heard, even if we must endure some inconvenience and frustration. To achieve the objective of taking part in the decision over who governs us, we must be willing to make the necessary sacrifices particularly because of the increasing trend in the number of infections and deaths recorded in our country. And I pray that the Almighty God should protect all our citizens who come out to exercise their constitutional rights to register from any sickness or infection by this disease. The process may be made deliberately slow and painful, but I encourage you all